The film begins by showing several men and women on blind dates at a dining place. However, one man named Hisashi does not seem to be enjoying the event. Because he remains silent, his friend asks Hisashi to have more fun. Shortly afterward, Hisashi excuses himself to go to the toilet. It turns out that Hisashi is experiencing digestive issues and forced himself to come because he felt bad about rejecting his friend's invitation, as they work as mechanics at a car workshop. After finishing dinner, Hisashi's friends plan to go to karaoke. However, Hisashi, feeling unwell, asks for permission to go home early. Not long after, a woman named Mai calls out to him and expresses her dislike for Hisashi's attitude of not pretending to have fun. Mai says that she also did not enjoy the event, but she tried to look like she was having fun to respect her friend's invitation. Hisashi then apologizes because his attitude apparently ruined the atmosphere, but he explains that his stomach started hurting when they began eating meat and drinking alcohol. Hearing this, Mai laughs because she didn't expect Hisashi to just have a stomach ache. Before they part ways, Mai gives a heating pad to Hisashi to use on his stomach. Since that day, Hisashi and Mai started meeting frequently to go for walks together. While spending time together, they learned many things about each other, and Mai shared that her dream is to become a chef. One day, they went to a dining place that Mai had long wanted to visit. Not long after that, they frequently met, and Hisashi even came to the restaurant where Mai works. One day, Hisashi came to Mai's house and saw photos of her when she was a child and also photos from her school days. Mai's mother then told a story about how Mai insisted on participating in a sports festival when she had a fever in 6th grade and managed to win first place. Then Mai's father asked about Hisashi's story, and he shared that he had a fever the day before a music performance because he was too worried. Not long after, when Christmas arrived, Hisashi and Mai celebrated together simply at Hisashi's apartment, where they just exchanged gifts and had dinner together. However, at that time, Mai accidentally pulled the tablecloth, causing all the food to fall. At that moment, their relationship seemed to grow closer, with Mai actively expressing her feelings and Hisashi being gentle and caring. One day, they sat together enjoying the city view from above, and at that time, Hisashi wanted to see the ring that Mai was wearing. Even though she didn't understand why, Mai took off her ring and gave it to Hisashi. After receiving it, Hisashi secretly exchanged the ring with another ring and then put it on Mai's finger. At that moment, Mai did not immediately realize because she was focused on the view and thought Hisashi was just returning the ring. But then Mai realized the ring she was wearing was different. After Hisashi had swapped the ring with an engagement ring, after that Mai immediately cried with joy and accepted Hisashi's proposal for marriage. Shortly after, Mai invited Hisashi to see someone's wedding ceremony at a venue she wanted for their wedding. Unexpectedly, Hisashi immediately approached the venue staff and reserved the venue for their wedding, choosing March 17th as their wedding date because that was the day they first met. Knowing this, Mai felt really happy because she still couldn't believe that all these happy things were happening suddenly and felt her life would be filled with happiness. However, one day, when Hisashi was looking at photos of their trips together, Mai said that she had never been to those places. Feeling that something was wrong with Mai, Hisashi decided to take her to the hospital, but before getting into the car, Mai suddenly screamed hysterically. Long story short, Mai finally arrived at the hospital and received medical attention. At that time, Mai's parents were also there. The next day, while working, Hisashi received a phone call informing him that Mai's heart had stopped beating, and without hesitation, he rushed to the hospital. At the same time, the doctor was seen trying hard to save Mai until her heart started beating again, but the doctor said that Mai might remain in a coma. Not long after, Mai, who was sleeping, suddenly had a seizure, and the nurse was immediately called to treat her. This condition made Mai's family and Hisashi very sad. The next day, Hisashi visited Mai every day, despite his busy schedule. Knowing this, Mai's mother felt very grateful for everything Hisashi did for her daughter. Mai's mother was also worried about Hisashi because his home was quite far from the hospital. However, Hisashi said that he had a motorcycle, so the costs weren't too high. Sometime later, winter was about to end, but Mai had not yet woken up. During this time, one thing Hisashi always did since Mai fell into a coma was to record short videos for her to watch when she woke up. One day, Hisashi's boss and co-workers expressed their concern for Mai. While eating with his boss, Hisashi explained that Mai had limbic encephalitis caused by an ovarian tumor, which made her immune system mistakenly attack her brain functions. where this rare disease affects only 33 out of 100 million people. His boss then asked if Hisashi remembered his first job interview there. At that time, Hisashi had said he loved fixing cars, and when asked what he thought about while fixing cars, Hisashi had answered with a red face that it was love. His boss then assured him that everything could be fixed as long as we continue to love and never give up. After that, this memory made Hisashi confident that Mai would wake up one day. The following day, Hisashi went to manage the venue reservation, where they were supposed to get married in March 2007, but because Mai's condition didn't allow it, Hisashi intended to reserve the same date for the following year. Hisashi then explained Mai's condition, and the venue staff understood. However, since there was no guarantee of when Mai would wake up, Hisashi's request was denied. After that, he pleaded for the reservation and assured that he would pay the cost. On the way home, his motorcycle broke down, and while fixing it, Hisashi didn't forget to record a video for Mai, wanting her to know what he did while waiting for Mai to wake up. That night, at the hospital, Mai's father informed Hisashi that Mai would undergo ovarian removal surgery. Despite the difficulty, Hisashi tried to convince himself and Mai's parents that everything would be fine. However, Mai's mother, who disliked his nonchalant attitude, said that Hisashi was not Mai's family, so he could speak lightly like that because she believed it was impossible for Mai to be fine. After being stopped by her husband, Mai's mother apologized to Hisashi. Several days later, Hisashi visited Mai's parents' house, where they asked him to forget about Mai. However, Hisashi explained that he had promised Mai to marry her and didn't mind doing all this. Hisashi then begged to be allowed to stay by Mai's side longer. Hearing this, Mai's father understood Hisashi's dreams and felt that what Mai was going through should only affect their family. However, Mai's mother was grateful that her daughter had found the right man. But for now, Hisashi had to forget about Mai. During his journey to his place, Hisashi left feeling disappointed because he realized he was never considered part of the family. At the same time, Hisashi fell off his motorcycle due to lack of focus. At work, his boss and co-workers noticed Hisashi's gloomy face. Coincidentally, there was a car delivery that day and his boss, wanting to cheer up Hisashi, invited him to join the delivery. It turned out that in the village where the car owner lived, there was going to be a kabuki performance by children. Knowing this, Hisashi and his boss watched the performance until the evening. When Hisashi was about to record the performance to show Mai, he remembered Mai's parents' request for him to forget their daughter. In the middle of the performance, Hisashi left his seat, followed by his boss, who asked what was wrong. Hisashi then told him that Mai's parents didn't see him as part of the family. However, seeing Mai still lying in the hospital made him want to do his best because his feelings for her never changed. Hisashi then expressed his desire to always be with Mai, which his boss was happy to hear this and allowed Hisashi to go back early. The next morning, Mai's mother was surprised to see Hisashi already in Mai's room, accompanying her. She thanked him because, despite not knowing when Mai would wake up, Hisashi continued to try to be part of their family, and from then on, Hisashi visited the hospital every day. By mid-2008, Mai had been in a coma for about a year and a half. At the same year, Hisashi's friend, who had previously invited him to a blind date, finally got married at the venue Mai had once dreamed of. The next day, when Hisashi visited Mai, she suddenly opened her eyes. Although she couldn't respond yet, Hisashi and Mai's parents were very happy because Mai had opened her eyes. The doctor then explained that Mai's current condition was like being reborn, and she had to get used to the real world again, like a child. Her memories might return, but not completely. Even though there was a chance for recovery, the doctor couldn't guarantee it. On the other hand, Hisashi immediately informed his co-workers that Mai had woken up. Hearing this, they were all happy and congratulated Hisashi. After that, Hisashi remained patient, waiting for Mai to recover until she could be taken out and smile again. In 2009, Mai began attending a rehabilitation center to help loosen her muscles so she could move her body as she used. First, Mai was trained to correct her posture. After she could sit properly, Mai started learning to use her hands, and she could even sing along, although she couldn't speak correctly yet. Mai's rapid progress was made possible by the support of people who genuinely loved her. As Mai's condition continued to improve, Hisashi became more enthusiastic about his daily life. By 2012, exactly 6 years since Mai first fell ill, she was almost fully recovered. At that moment, Mai remembered many things. All her body functions had returned to normal, and she only needed to practice walking. One day, Mai's friends came to visit, chat, and joke around with her, along with Mai's mother, who sat at a different table nearby. Suddenly, one of Mai's friends asked where she and Hisashi had met. Seeing my struggle to answer, Hisashi tried to help by saying they first met while drinking with his co-workers at a barbecue place near the station. That day, his stomach hurt so much that Hisashi couldn't eat or drink. Suddenly, Mai approached him and scolded him, saying his attitude was very annoying. Hearing this, Mai's friends seemed to enjoy the story, but Mai's mother realized that Mai couldn't remember the memories with Hisashi. Shortly after Mai's friends left, Hisashi asked Mai if she couldn't remember that story or if it was just him she couldn't remember. With a guilty look, Mai confirmed this and apologized. Even when Hisashi said he had promised to marry her, Mai couldn't remember. Hearing this, Hisashi tried to understand because he didn't want Mai to feel burdened by constantly trying to remember. However, Mai promised to try until she could remember everything. After that, Hisashi frequently started telling Mai about all the things they had done together. He also told her about the places they visited together, and Mai seemed to be taking notes of everything in her book. The next day, Mai asked her mother to go to several places, hoping to remember Hisashi by visiting the places they had been to. At that moment, Mai also went to the station where she first called Hisashi to talk. While they were by the riverbank, her mother told Mai that during the time she was asleep, Hisashi had become part of their family. Shortly after, her mother suggested they return, but Mai wanted to go to Hisashi's apartment. Unfortunately, they had promised the doctor to be out for only 3 hours, so they had to go back. That night, Hisashi saw Mai trying to wear the ring he had given her again, but soon after, Mai took it off and put the ring back. At that moment, Mai kept thinking about not being able to remember anything about Hisashi. The next day, Mai secretly went to Hisashi's apartment alone. Meanwhile, Hisashi, who had come to visit Mai that morning, felt very worried when he found out she wasn't in her room. After asking Mai's mother, Hisashi was told that Mai might have gone to his apartment. Hearing this, Hisashi hurriedly went home. On that day, it rained heavily. Mai was initially sheltering under a tree, but then recklessly decided to brave the rain. Not long after, Mai was near Hisashi's apartment, but her wheelchair lost balance, causing her to fall and unable to get up on her own. Fortunately, Hisashi arrived soon after and immediately ran to help Mai. In Hisashi's arms, Mai cried, apologizing for her recklessness in going alone and expressing her frustration for not being able to remember anything about Hisashi. Suddenly, Mai felt a headache, and Hisashi quickly took her to the hospital, fearing her condition might revert to what it was when she was bedridden. Not long after, Mai regained consciousness and immediately apologized to her parents for worrying them. At that moment, Hisashi felt confused about what to do because he couldn't force himself to stay by Mai's side if she didn't remember him or even love him. A few days later, Hisashi took Mai to the place where he had proposed to her. At that moment, Hisashi told Mai not to force herself to remember him anymore. Hisashi also shared that when Mai first opened her eyes, he was very happy, but Mai must have felt confused because, after being asleep for so long, a stranger was suddenly beside her. Hisashi then thanked Mai for trying to get to know him and now just wanted her to take good care of herself because she had gone through everything bravely and didn't need to suffer anymore. So, Hisashi decided he would no longer visit Mai, and it was the hardest decision he made, but he believed it was the best for Mai's condition. Hisashi then decided to change jobs and become a mechanic, but this time he worked in a small village workshop. Meanwhile, Mai finally returned home and found the phone she used to use, but she couldn't unlock it because she didn't remember the password. Until 2014, Mai still routinely practiced walking at the Rehabilitation Center, and at the same time, Hisashi often thought about Mai when he was alone. One day, during Mai's final checkup, the doctor declared her body completely healthy, where the doctor informed Mai that she could get married and have a baby. Hearing this, Mai was confused because she thought her ovaries had been removed. The doctor then explained that her mother had insisted that Mai could still have children after the surgery. After that, Mai and her mother went to a shopping center. When they finished shopping, Mai waited outside while her mother fetched the car. Coincidentally, the shopping center was directly across from Mai's dream wedding venue. At that moment, a venue staff member who had just opened the gate recognized Mai and immediately approached her. The staff member was delighted to see Mai in good health, but Mai looked confused when invited to visit the venue briefly. The staff member then revealed that year after year, Hisashi always came to reserve the venue for the same date, even though they initially refused. However, Hisashi's persistence eventually led the venue to always reserve March 17th for them. Hearing this, Mai suddenly remembered her phone and tried to unlock it using the date she met Hisashi. Fortunately, she was able to unlock the phone and saw a photo of her with Hisashi as the wallpaper. Mai also saw hundreds of videos that Hisashi had sent, and she began to watch them one by one. Thanks to this, Mai gathered the courage to follow Hisashi on her own. Knowing this, Mai's father was actually worried about letting her travel alone by boat, but Mai's mother reassured him that Mai would be fine because she decided to do everything on her own will. During the boat trip, Mai continued to watch the videos Hisashi had sent. At that moment, Mai felt very lucky to be loved by Hisashi so sincerely. Eventually, she arrived at the workshop where Hisashi worked, and the owner of the workshop told her where Hisashi usually spent his free time. Not long after, from a distance, Mai saw Hisashi fixing a children's swing. As soon as he saw her, Hisashi walked towards her, but Mai asked him to stop because this time she would approach him. Standing in front of Hisashi, Mai said that even though she still didn't remember him, she believed she had fallen in love with Hisashi all over again. At that moment, Hisashi said that he had always loved Mai. After that, Hisashi invited Mai to go with him and helped Mai stand and walked slowly. Mai cried with happiness while hugging Hisashi. Eventually, they got married, and by then, Mai could walk on her own to take Hisashi's hand at the altar. In June 2015, they were blessed with a baby boy. And the story ends. Moral lesson from the story: when life gives you a stomachache on a blind date, just remember, a little digestive distress might lead to a love story. Sometimes, true love starts with a lot of toilet breaks and a heating pad.